Ladies and gentlemen, I have bought Gamestop. I'm just kidding. I had to say it because Benny just said odds on a Bitcoin live and saying he bought some. I had to say it, dude. I've not bought GameStop. I've not bought AMC. But in about an hour, I will be posting a podcast that I did with someone from one of the companies that I love, Palantir. And Arnie is going to join me at 4:45. We're going to be reacting to it live. The title and thumbnail of this video probably gives it away who we're talking to. But still, I think you guys will enjoy it. It will be a fun podcast. That'll be here at 4:45 until 4:45. We've got a lot to analyze and a lot to talk about in the context of the equity markets. First of all, I got a new hat finally. We've got the Palantir logo on the hat. Palantir's merch store is opening up soon. Shout out to my boy Iliano, who was the guy who got me hooked up to even meet Carp at the event we were at. Just got in the mail today a bunch of Palantir caps. So maybe we retire the Weejo cap. Maybe we retire the Weejo cap and we just we start rocking Palantir. But that merch store will be out soon. That's gonna be super fun. Everyone's gonna love to get a bunch of merch and rep the company that we've been wanting to rep for a long time now. All right, so we're going to talk about a lot of things. We have some new updates on CPI and PPI. Today, the PPI came out 0.5% month over month. Market was expecting 0.2%, a bit higher than expected. However, the March and April or February months were revised to an extent. So J-Pow, when asked about it today, we did react to J-Pow at the conference, at some conference in the Netherlands today, talking about it. He basically said it's not hot, it's mixed, which is kind of bullish. And then at around 12 p.m. today, we saw the broader market go a bit higher, leading to people to believe, we'll talk about the meme stocks in a second, leading people to believe that CPI is good. Look at the S&P. It's up 0.46%. We were at like 520 on the lows today. Now we're at 523. This was around 12:31 p.m. So some people are thinking, look, PPI was, in the words of J-Pow, mixed, not hot. But CPI, maybe it's going to be cold. And if it's going to be cold or at least better than what the market's expecting, that's why the market's kind of front running this run. If CPI comes in good after 4 months in a row of a hot CPI, all of us thought, it's hot. Then the fourth month, I was like, okay, this thing is really hot. Like, when is this thing going to cool down? If that is the case, then maybe we're going to have a bit of a more exciting at least next couple months, at least going into summer, if CPI comes in a little bit colder than expected. We'll talk about the Google conference as well. Google announced a ton of things. Google stock right now at 172. Stock is up about 1%, 0.6%, nothing too crazy, but they did announce some amazing things that are going to be up there with ChatGPT's announcements yesterday. So analyst projections for tomorrow: Bank of America 3.4, Barclays 3.4, Goldman, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, HBC, UBS, BMO, Citadel, Wells Fargo, and Scotiabank. All of these guys, 3.4. Citibank says 3.5. TD Ameritrade says, or TD Bank says 3.3. So pretty much consensus is 3.4. Now, this was the same consensus last time, and we came in at 3.5. I think consensus was 3.3. We came in at 3.5. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see 3.6, but oil did significantly come down in the month of April after the Israel-Iran basically attacks they had against each other that uplifted oil to about $92 a barrel. Now it's at 79. So, I mean, maybe that for the last 2 weeks of April, that is what gets us inflation to come down. Here's Tom Lee. He was just on CNBC. Here's his thoughts on what's going on with inflation. Then we'll keep going from there.
I think it's time to get bullish. Stocks really have been consolidating for the last couple of months. And I think the conversation you had is correct. The data has not convinced hawks or doves which way inflation's breaking. And I think once we get a decisive data point, and potentially it's tomorrow, I think that $6 trillion of cash comes off the sidelines, and I think stocks break out of this range. And I mean, that's our bet that, May ends up being a very strong month for stocks, even better than it's been already.
What's this rally about? Why don't you tell me in your own words what you think this is about? Why did we rebound so quickly? And why are we now on the doorstep of a new closing high for the S&P?
Well, I think that markets kind of had a very sort of simple framework in their head, which is, as soon as inflation accelerates, the Fed switches from dove to hawk and tries to crush the economy. And I think Powell's been very clear in all of his recent statements that, look, inflation is not just this core headline number, and it's not just a services number. It's these three moving pieces: housing, auto insurance, and everything else. And they've been playing a waiting game. We're seeing that even in some of the recent articles, and Powell talked about it, and a lot of folks are talking about auto insurance. I think once that turns, and it possibly, because if you look at PPI, insurance actually rolled over pretty hard. I think it's going to make it clear to markets that it's not just a, hey, inflation is stubborn. It's really this, inflation is now normalizing. The economy is in good shape, and rates are so restrictive. The Fed actually needs to cut rates, and that's actually quite good for stocks. I mean, look, if it's a pause, actually, it's good for stocks. If it's a cut, I think it's even better.
I mean, I was looking at the sector activity today, Tom. I mentioned at the top of the program, up volume was way outpacing down. Even earlier today, when it was hard to get much, if anything, going, there was only maybe one or two sectors that were green. Now almost everything is green. Tech is having a great session here. That is now, leading the way. A lot of the names there are green. What are we to make of this new closing high for NASDAQ, especially after some of the rollover that we saw, in the month of April in those names?
I think it's really good news. I think a lot of folks thought this was a ninth inning market expansion or, an extended rally, but I think the revival of meme stocks and the fact that there's still a huge amount of cash that's been accumulating on the sidelines in the last couple of weeks shows you, look, I think there's still a lot of legs to this rally. That's why I think May could not only be strong, but of course, as stocks could do very well into year end.
So Tom's bullish. And I know that he's always been bullish, right? But in the context of him being bullish, it's a bit more about he feels stocks have been stuck in this kind of state of purgatory, which is, the S&P is up 10% year to date. So it's not really purgatory, but over the past couple of weeks where they've been stuck, they've been wanting to spring out. We've had phenomenal earnings across the board. Yes, Apple's doing buybacks and that's kind of juicing them up. Yes, Tesla didn't have the best earnings, but the point is AI is here. AI is real. And from Tom Lee's perspective, if AI is here and AI is real, then maybe we should be thinking of it a lot more seriously, along with inflation coming down, as a real bull market versus being scared about kind of where stocks are going to end up. Now, he's honest, though. He says if CPI is bad tomorrow, which given how the market's reacting, maybe the market feels it's going to be good. If CPI is bad tomorrow, then things are going to get kind of tough. If it's not, and maybe PPI a little bit of an indicator of where CPI is going, things might end up being better than expected. So that's what we got in the context of Tom Lee. That's what we got in the context of CPI. A couple of changes I made to my portfolio today. I actually raised some cash in two ways. So I had SoFi options. I got rid of all my SoFi options. The market gave me some exit liquidity to SoFi it's at 747 right now. It's 757. That's when I sold. Lost about $300, $400 on that trade. So that's okay. I wanted to get out of it. I was down like $1,500 given how SoFi collapsed after those earnings. And I bought those options near the bottom. So the fact that I was down, obviously the volatility with the options, IV crush, all that stuff played in. But the fact that I got out a little bit unscathed, I like that I was able to do that. Raised about $4,500 of cash there. I did end up buying these SoFi $15 calls for 2026. I bought 5 of those as kind of a gamble. And the reason I bought 5 of those as a gamble is because it's a $500 position. So really simple. And on the off chance SoFi ends up becoming one of the meme stocks that's heavily shorted and runs, a little bit of exposure to it. Now, do I think that's going to happen? No, because I don't think apes really care about an online bank. I think they care about a lot of other companies, and the stocks that are really going up, like this one that some people may have not seen today, Faraday Futures. These guys were short. It's up 350%. These guys were short 94%. SoFi short 18%. So I don't think SoFi ends up turning into an ape meme stock. I actually think SoFi might struggle a bit until the next earnings. But if it does, wanted to get a little bit of exposure. Overall, wanted to raise cash. So that's one move I did today. Number 2 is I closed out all my cash secured puts. So I had a bunch of cash secured puts for $21 on Palantir, $23 on Palantir, SoFi $8. All of those have been down for like the past 2 weeks, but because of the rally we had today, Palantir getting to $22, SoFi getting to $7.50, all of them were up about 20%. So I was able to exit those in the green, up 20%, made some money on those CSPs, but continued to get my collateral back and raise cash. So now I have a hefty amount of cash that I want to deploy when the time is right. Maybe we don't get a chance to deploy that cash and that cash just stays there. It's always nice to have some cash. But if Robinhood gets back down to 15, 16, which I think very much could happen, if GameStop, we're looking at right here, up 60% on the day. We'll talk more about GameStop in a second. If this bad boy falls back to $10, and here's a stat I'm going to give you guys in a second for why I think it really could fall down to $10. It topped out at $80 today. Robinhood's going to fall with it. and it's going to be an irrational reason. Robinhood right here up 6% of the day that Robinhood's going to fall with it. That's when I'm going to want to bite. So I want to say the same thing with Palantir, right? If Palantir CPI comes in hot, Palantir goes to $20.02. I did buy 30 shares of Palantir today. So with some of the cash I raised, I bought 30 shares of Palantir. If Palantir goes to $20.30 or $19 somehow, I want to have more cash to buy Palantir. So raising cash today was one of the prerogatives I had, given the market was willing to give us some green prices pretty much across the board today, as the market pumped on this meme stock mania that happened as well. Okay, let's talk a little bit about why not just buy GME? Yeah, if it was only that easy. Which honestly, on Sunday night on Robinhood's overnight trading, I was looking at GameStop at $19 and I saw it go from like 16 to 19. I thought about it. I mean, I'm human. I'm a human being, okay? I thought about it. Maybe just like throw $1,000 in there, but I didn't do it. It would have been literally that easy, just buying $1,000. Well, that $1,000 would have turned into what? $3,000 would have 3x'd or 2x at least. Yeah, close to 2x. Yeah, so we would have had 2,000, but I didn't do it. So I think the easy money on GameStop has been made, which actually transitions me into my next point. So I think the easy money, I was just on a Twitter Spaces talking about this. I think easy money has been made on GameStop. I think now it's time for the hard money. And maybe I'm wrong about this, right? Maybe there's a lot of easy money left to be made, but here's a stat that I just want to show everybody. GameStop's price to earnings at this price is currently 1,300. What does that mean when we talk about price to earnings, right? We constantly say this all the time, but what does that mean? It means you're paying $1,300 for every $1 of growth, or $1 generated in GameStop's earnings growth. For context, NVIDIA's is 34. You're paying $34 for every $1 that NVIDIA is getting. I think Tesla's is like 44 or something. So does that make sense to pay $1,300 for every $1 generated? Obviously not. Now, I know that there's a different movement around GameStop. It's not really about these fundamentals, but the point is when it was $19 or $10, the PE was still ridiculous, but it wasn't this ridiculous. So I think the question now for shorts, which are down $5.2 billion as of today, May 14th, is if it's time to cover and call it quits, or do the shorts get greedy like they did in 2021 and said, you know what, I'm down $5 billion, but I'm going to keep shorting because this 1,300 PE is unsustainable. So the reason I say GameStop, the easy money has been made, because now it's up 170% year to date. It's up like 200% in the past couple of days. If you want this 46 to turn into 86, I think there's a lot of hard work that needs to be done. And I don't know if the market's willing to be able to give them momentum. Vingesh says people were buying shares at 420 at its peak. That's correct. But remember, they were still short more than 100%. Right now, the short float's 24%. If the shorts have covered to an extent, maybe this is the rally we're seeing. If the shorts have not covered, maybe we've still got more room to grow, right, as the shorts begin to officially cover. But at that point, the shorts literally, they were shorting shares that they didn't own, right? So they had to cover, else the losses would be just astronomical, even though they were already astronomical. I don't think that's the same situation we're in right now. And maybe that's why the PE does start to become ridiculous. Maybe that's why people start to take profits, right? Maybe people just start to say, you know what, I made some good money. Like if I was up $2,000 or $1,000, I would take my profits. But I'm not up $2,000. The question is, the people that did make money, are they willing to take their profits? AMC up 30%. Now, AMC had a rough day, dude. AMC, two things happened for AMC. Number one, it peaked out at $13. Now it's at $6. So still up 30%, but it's not up the 115% that it was at one point. Number two, Adam Aron, the CEO, diluted shareholders by $250 million. They sold 73 million shares at $3.45 a share in an at-the-market offering. And they dumped that on the market. The fact that this thing is still up 30% after, like, imagine Palantir dumped 70 million shares on top of the 2 billion shares we already have at like $20. And Peter Thiel didn't really help by selling 7 million shares and basically doing something like that, right? Like, but imagine there's new shares were created. It hurts shareholders. It means you own less of the company, and it tends for the stock to come down on days like that. But you can only do it when there's enough liquidity for you to be able to even do that type of an offering. There is so much liquidity, volume on AMC, 593 million, that liquidity is what is allowing AMC to be able to do what they're doing. Here's another stat that you guys are not going to believe. We got the market close in 30 seconds. Faraday Future, 1.5 billion shares have been traded in volume today. 1.5. I've never seen that before. Let me know if I've never seen 1.5 billion shares traded in volume. I mean, that's, I think SoFi was the highest at like 400 million. I saw 2 quarters ago on their earnings. I've never seen 1.5 billion. Like, I'm astonished. 1.5 billion. It's up 367%. The stock was 6 cents this morning. It's 28 cents today. Crazy world in the global capital equity markets. Thank you all for being with me here today. Tuesday, May 14th, 4 p.m. Got a good podcast launching in 45 minutes. Stock market is now closed. All right, markets closed. Let's see what we've got going on in the market. What does the business do? For Faraday Future, they're an EV company, if I'm not wrong. Palantir actually invested in them at one point. So, yeah, they're an EV company, and they aren't doing that as well as an EV company. So it's just absolutely insane what's going on with Faraday Future. Meet Kevin had a good point on this. He says it's $11.8 million market cap, which the total company's value is less than his plane's price. So yeah, Meet Kevin has a plane that's worth more than a public company. GameStop here, $48, up 61% of the day. Google ends about 0.61% up on the day at 171. Robinhood, $17.96 after hours, up 6.7% on the day. Arc Innovation was up 2.3%, 2.13. Tesla actually had a nice day, 3.29%. PayPal green, 64.71. Amazon, the head of AWS, left today. I don't think it really matters that much, but market was a little scared about that, so it dipped a little bit during the day, but right now it's flat at 187. Enphase, phenomenal day, up 5.71%. Alibaba, not a good day, down 6%. You would think China's clearing up, and I think this dip's going to get bought because China's getting more friendly, but today the earnings were just not good enough to justify the Baba run. So we got Baba here at 79.51, dropped 6%. Microsoft down 0.69% or up 0.69%. Carvana up 3.35%. Let's go to the DGen portfolio and see what happens. So Mullen was up 6% today. Hood, again, 6.69%. Beyond Meat was flat. Spirit Airlines up 2%. Hollow was up 61%. Galactic, the Virgin thing, was up 21%. SunPower, this stock is 94% short as well. A ridiculous number, 59%. Tupperware up 15%, Plug Power up 19%. A lot of these were up even more during the day. Like, look at Plug. It was at $5. Now it's at $3.45. So the momentum did die out towards the end of the day, led by GameStop going from like 60 to 49, still up 61%. It's insane, but not as high as it was before. And then AMC right here, 689, down 1.3% after hours as well. Now it's 680. When's the interview? Just joined in about 40 minutes. 40 minutes, we'll go live with the interview. Got to talk about some macro stuff, and then 4:45, the interview will be live. Arnie will join me. We're going to react to the interview on the podcast or on the Market Open. And you guys can check it out as I post it on YouTube as well. NEO is up 25% in the past month. NEO right now up 6% today. So let me tell you guys the stocks that have gone up over the past month in the meme stock world. So over the past month, GameStop's up 330%, Reddit 41%, Spirit Airlines 28%, Rivian 26%. Rivian bottomed at like 820, I think. AMC 122, Neo 25, Lucid 24, BlackBerry 22%. It's been an incredible day for some of these companies in terms of how they operated, but we had a big day. We had a very big day, very big week that I don't think anyone expected. Today. One piece of news on Hood, and then we'll get to some more macro stuff with Liz Young, who's on CNBC today. Oh, Nubank reports? Okay, we'll cover them in a second. So Robinhood is officially number 81 on the App Store. The screenshot's actually old. I just checked 20 minutes ago. They're number 81 in the entire United States top 200 free apps. That's very hard to do. I mean, they're sitting up there with Zillow and Target right now, and they're number 7 in the finance category. So yesterday when we talked about, hey, we think Robinhood's going to be a beneficiary of this stuff, it seems like Robinhood is being a beneficiary of this stuff as they're getting more downloads and more users. Nubank, they have earnings right now, so let's go to them. Nubank is flat after hours. Let me see if I can pull up their numbers. Nubank is a Latin American fintech, important fintech. So we'll check them out. By the way, I'm not going to be playing Roaring Kitty's new tweets. We got copyright strike this morning, guys. I was talking about it. I said we might get copyright strike. I was trying to get rid of the audio, and 10 minutes after the stream, YouTube's like, "Hey, you're copyright strike." And so it's and I didn't even play the audio. They copyright striked me for Troy for playing the movie. But we played 30 seconds of the movie, and they got rid of the whole stream. So yeah, Roaring Kitty definitely lost me some money today, even if he made everybody else money on GameStop. So we just got to be a little careful playing his tweets because his movie clips are not liked by YouTube. That's another reason I like Twitter, dude. Twitter, you can kind of play whatever you want and not really feel the pain. Okay, so Nubank is up a little bit. I'm trying to get the updates on their stock after hours on Twitter. Okay, here we go. Net income of $378 million Revenue of 2.7 billion. Wow. So they beat revenue by 30 million or 200 million. The consensus was 2.49. They're at 2.7. So that's a nice beat. Net income of 378 million. I think that's a record for their profitability. I think that's a record. That's incredible, dude. 300 million of profit. So there you go on Nubank. Where's the stock right now? Stock is, oh my God, red candle. Hold on, let me go to the extended hours. Let me go to that. Yeah, here we go. Red candle down 1.7. Wow, it was just down 5% and it recovered. Let me try to pull up the actual earnings from the company. Nubank doesn't really have a trend after hours trading. Something's up, something's down. Always great numbers though. That's actually true. That's a massive red candle, dude. Something's down 6%. What? It is. I remember this happened last time when I was covering Nubank. They don't really have a trend when this thing kind of plays out. But they are up 40% since October 2023. Okay, let's go to their website. Nubank IR. Wow, why is this candle so red? Goodness. I get they don't have a trend after hours, but this is pretty aggressive. Let's go to their results. Nubank 2024 earnings release. Okay, here we go. Let's look a little bit at some of these numbers. Yeah, goodness gracious. Do you guys see this red candle, right? This is ridiculous. This is like intense. Okay, let me stop share. And let's move on from there. Okay, so here are the numbers on Nubank. Again, Nubank is just an incredible compounder of growth. So we've got 5.5 million new customers during the quarter. That's insane, dude. That's insane. 5 million people in 90 days. 20 million year over year. Total of 99 million customers. Holy crap. This reinforces Nu's position as one of the largest and fastest growing digital financial service platforms, and now the fourth largest financial institution in Latin America by number of customers. In Brazil, the pace of net monthly ads was 1.3 million. Net income, 378 million. Wow, they doubled their net income. More than doubled. Wow, year over year. Adjusted net income, 442. Revenues, 2.74 billion, up 64%. Holy crap, year over year. Incredible. Deposits, 24 billion. Wow. 53% year over year. Brazil consumer customer credit portfolio was at 5% in line with expectations. Risk adjusted NIM reached 9.5% as well. I mean, pretty incredible numbers. You can't argue their growth. The only thing I've always thought about Nubank was their valuation. Now, their valuation, you could argue, is justified because the growth, as you can see, those numbers were insane. But it has a market cap of 55 billion at $11 a share. I don't think you can necessarily say it's undervalued, but you definitely can't say it's ridiculously overvalued either. I think Buffett still has a position in this stock, so Buffett likes this one as well. But Latin America is a big market, and Nubank seems to be going after it. Nubank right here down 3% after hours, but still very good earnings as well. Do we have anything else after hours? Let's see. Do we have anything else? And then we'll listen to Liz Young, and she'll tell us the opposite of what Tom Lee told us. Today's May 14th. May 14th after hours. No. Oh, Rumble. Let's look at Rumble. This gets classified as a meme stock. Rumble. This is like the YouTube competitor. They're down 5%. Okay, I'll pull up Rumble's earnings. While I'm doing that, let's listen to Liz Young and see what she has to say. And then we'll go to that. All right, here's Liz Young.
To our talk to the tape. Is this still a stay-the-course bull market about to take its next leg higher? Let's ask our panel. Liz Young is SoFi's head of market strategy. AJ Oden, an investment strategist with JP Morgan's private bank. You see both are here at Post 9. Welcome back, everybody. All right, Liz. I mean, here we are, like 9-10 points away from a new high. But I read here that you say if we take out all-time highs, a new pullback begins. I thought it would confirm the fact that we've been able to rally back so sharply and set us up for what's ahead.
So let me clarify. When we hit 5,200 and crossed over, I felt like momentum would continue in that direction. Momentum is still very much intact. We're above the 50-day, the 100-day, the 200-day. We've taken out all the technical retracement levels. We're at about 86% retracement. So we are right on the cusp of hitting that all-time high. The intraday high, I think, is a little bit higher, about 52.63. So to take that out, then I think we struggle there for a while. I don't see another leg beyond that that's meaningful unless we get some kind of really cool CPI tomorrow and cuts get pulled forward.
Is that what this is about right now? You know, again, today's initial read, people said, oh my gosh, it's hotter than expected. Mm-hmm. But then you saw the revisions lower. And even the Fed chair who is speaking live today over in Europe wouldn't call it hot. He called it mixed.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a surprise to absolutely no one, Powell said rates are going to stay higher for longer. The other thing that he did say today was that basically they don't see GDP staying below trend anymore. So maybe seeing growth getting a little bit stronger. If CPI stays exactly where it is for the second quarter and GDP actually heats up, so we were at 1.6 for the first quarter, if it gets hotter again, there's no reason for them to cut. And the market has been okay with that so far. So right now, I don't think there's also any reason for the market to pull back in a meaningful fashion. But if we surpass those all-time highs without really any good news to take us into the next leg upward, and without an earnings season that's going to start anew yet, there's not that much support fundamentally to take it, let's say, another 5 or 10% beyond that in this moment.
Let's debate.
I'll let her finish, but GameStop and AMC are running almost 7-8% after hours, both of them.
That. AJ, what do you think?
Well, I think I'd have to agree with Liz to a certain extent, just because of the fact I think we're getting away from the double dutch of how many cuts we're going to have. And the market just believes the next move is a cut. And so we're in a better place than we were last year.
The market's correct, isn't it? The market believes that the next move is a cut.
Yes. And I believe that's where we're headed from here. And so as much as maybe, whether or not we need to have a cut, that we could debate on. But I think as long as we still believe the next move is a cut is what's important right now.
But I mean, to Liz's point, the economy, let's say,
Okay, so Liz is kind of bullish there. She's not super bearish. Her argument's just dependent on inflation, which, I mean, it's true for everyone's analysis here. But if she thinks inflation's starting to start to come down a little bit more, I think she's going to be a bit more bullish. Faraday futures down 11% after hours, folks, after being up 367% on the day. AMC's up 5%. GameStop up 5%. Looks like some buy orders are coming in after hours on both of these stocks as they are trending upward. Gene says, imagine having a bearish girlfriend. Dude, I think it would be the worst thing. That's why it's just like, you can't have a bearish girlfriend, dude. Like, your girlfriend's got to support you, be positive. And when your stock's, down 80%, when you bought Palantir at 27 and it's at $6, she's got to pat you on the back and tell you things are going to be okay. There's no way she can make fun of you, dude. Could you imagine your girlfriend saying, I told you so on a stock? Like, dude, that would be like the worst thing on the planet, dude. I have a girlfriend and I buy a stock. It's down 10%. She's like, I told you not to buy it. I just look at her and be like, are you kidding me here? Like, do you even know what a stock is? Like, tell me not to buy the stock. But yeah, we need a girl who can always be bullish. All right, so we got AMC up 3.9% right now. Let's look at the Mag 7. NVIDIA, we didn't even talk about them. They had an incredible day. And let's cover the Google event as well, because it all goes back to NVIDIA. NVIDIA 913 after hours right now. Tesla 177, Google 171, Amazon 187. So Google announced some ridiculous stuff this event at their I/O event. And the stuff had to primarily do with how they're showcasing new multimodal features, kind of similar to what AI did, or similar to what OpenAI did as well. So couple of things. Let me play one of Google's newest videos, and then we're going to listen to Dan Ives talk about this as well. So here's Google's next era of search. This is what they announced today. And then we'll listen to Dan Ives.
I got that swagger.
I'm going to mute the audio because I'm assuming they're going to screw me on the audio, but hopefully we don't need the audio. Hopefully. Okay, so I'll just be talking here. They already screwed me once today. Okay, so they're generating searches. They're showing you how you can generate more AI searches. Explain how temperature impacts baking. You type that in, and then boom, you get, oh wow, and dude, Gemini's been amazing for me. I've been like asking questions and getting answers immediately. Like, it's super quick as well. Not even on Gemini, just on Google's website. Is this video real or is it rigged like last time? It looks real. It looks like my experiences with Google. This looks pretty cool, man. This takes away the need to go to ChatGPT. I mean, like, it's pretty damn good. And I've been using it already. I'm sure a lot of people have been finding generative AI answers on Google that have been very easy. They're showing maps. They're showing how to get to a restaurant, how to look at reviews. You don't need to go to Yelp anymore. Rip Yelp. There's so many different ways that this stuff can operate. Speak now to ask about this video. Why is the lever not moving all the way? Holy crap. So you can kind of speak into these ideas and then immediately get rid that. You would go to YouTube, right? To be like, hey, how do I like fix my tire or something? Now it's doing that right there. Wow. What are good options for a day out in Dallas with the kids? Recommend some ice cream shops near me. Okay, searching the web, finding places. There you go. This actually kind of replaces Perplexity AI to an extent, right? I mean, Perplexity was kind of dubbed as this answer machine. Google's like, hey, we can do this as well. And I mean, it's hard to bet against Google because, of course, they can do this given that they have the data from everybody already. Here's Dan Ives. Let's hear what he has to say about this. Then we'll keep talking about Google. We'll have the Shyam Sankar podcast premiering in 30 minutes, guys. Arnie and I will react to it live on the channel. Here we go.
I'm going to ask Google, where did I last see a guy in a lime green jacket? Sitting right across from me, by the way, Wedbush's Dan Ives joins us right now. Google told me that I would find you here.
And it was ahead of even the presentation.
Ahead of the event. It's really good. You say there is an AI arms race going on right now. We know who the players are. How's Google positioned and how's it doing?
I think quickly narrowing the gap versus Microsoft and OpenAI. But this is a huge event. I mean, for developers, in terms of this Game of Thrones that's playing out, I mean, Google really needs to show from a Gemini perspective and from AI that they're going to be the ones that actually monetize this. At the same time that it looks like Apple and OpenAI are going to have the partnership. You know, Deirdre talks about the device. What's going to be the AI device? We think it's really going to be the future of the iPhone. I think iPhone 16, that's going to be WWDC next month. So they need to make sure, and I think they're doing a good job to show on search as well as even on cloud. When you think AI, you don't just think Microsoft and the godfather of AI, NVIDIA, you think Google.
Is the future of their AI, just as you said, the future for Apple is the iPhone, AI in Apple is the iPhone. Is the future here the Android phone?
So I think it's going to be about search, how they monetize that in terms of when we talk about, you look at Gemini, you look at sort of these next versions, how they're going to monetize that. What does that mean for the actual advertisers? And then, of course, they'll be advertising AI from a cloud perspective. That's a huge piece of Google as well. After a lot of black eyes that they've had from Gemini, from some of the launches, it's important here to developers that they flex the muscle, show we have the product, we have something others don't have. And I think this so far has been
we have the meats.
Because if you look at the last 6 to 12 months, it hasn't. It's excuses. Well, we should have done this. This is an important event. So they're leading again. And when it comes to search, you know, it continues to be their world. Everyone else is paying rent. But you look at OpenAI, you look at Nadella, you look at now, obviously, Apple and Cook. This is going to be really a battle that plays out going after that $1 trillion spend.
And this is my favorite thought of experiment, if Siri becomes powered by ChatGPT, I probably would just default to using that pretty much all the time. What's Google's answer to that?
I don't think they have that answer yet. And they're talking about a search assistant and what that could be. But the nightmare.
They definitely don't have an answer because most of the world, not most of the world, but a lot of people that use iPhones, they're not going to click a separate app to use a search assistant. I mean, maybe some of the people that hate Siri, but if Siri is pretty damn good, I don't think people are going to use a separate app just for a voice assistant.
For Google, what keeps Sundar up at night? It's Cook and ultimately Nadella from an OpenAI getting together in that launch event. So when WWDC next month they launch, that's not good for Google. They wanted to be front and center in terms of Gemini, and I think that's an important dynamic that's playing out here. Who's going to monetize?
And maybe
well, what's curious to me is, didn't we hear Google and Apple working together a couple of weeks ago with Gemini? So why isn't Gemini closing the deal? GameStop, wow, up 11% after hours. Oh my gosh. It was basically flat for the past 3 hours. Now it's up. AMC's up 8%. If Gemini wanted to be the modern sort of de facto OS of Siri, essentially, why didn't they make that deal happen? Why did they let Sundar, or why did they let Satya get with Cook? It seems like that Bloomberg's reporting it's definitely happening, some OpenAI iOS 18 integration. And that's probably when GPT-5 might come out as well. Maybe that's why they didn't announce it yesterday. So if that's the case, I mean, dude, Gemini does have to figure out how they're going to navigate this situation. Another thing about Google that was really interesting, I saw there was an example that let's say you're taking pictures of your son or daughter over the years as they're growing up. You can literally tell Google's AI, like, show me pictures of my kids growing up or something. And it'll like find when they were 5, when they were 6, when they were 7, make this timeline. It was like this really cool demo. And it's like, they're going to explode different use cases of AI within these products. The question is simply going to be, is Google going to win that game, or is it going to be something like ChatGPT? GameStop right now up 11.24% after hours. Jim Cramer has basically said that this GameStop AMC thing is a casino, and he thinks that it's not going to end well. Look, I think he might be right that maybe it doesn't end as well as, you know, a lot of people are thinking. But the question is, how much time does it have before it ends badly? Like, can we see GameStop coming back down to $10? Yeah. Could it happen a year from now? Yeah. Could it happen a week from now? Sure. But if there's momentum, I mean, this thing's not stopping. There are people that want this stock. And what Jay Clayton said on the SEC today did not help. Did not help at all. Here's 1 minute of what he said. We watched this in the morning, but here's 1 minute of what this guy said this morning, basically saying what Roaring Kitty's doing might be illegal. That definitely is not going to get people to not buy the stock.
That's clear, Leslie. And he's trading on his own information. That's why it's not insider trading. But is this something that we should be tolerating in our markets? You know, whether it's legal or illegal, I don't think so. And that's why I say, why doesn't it, you know?
But what does that mean, not to tolerate? So the idea, I would think, is you look at this more in the context of market manipulation, right? And the question is, are you allowed to manipulate the market? People, by the way, publish things all the time, and they say, hey, I like this stock, and they, you know, hope that other folks follow them. Is that market manipulation?
Generally not.
Maybe not. So what is the distinction in your mind as somebody who ran this department and who's looking at and cares about the integrity of these markets?
Well, that's why I'm saying, okay, we can discuss what are exactly the facts and circumstances around the publication of this tweet and the like. But in the meantime, if you care about the markets and you care about investing, come on this program.
Right.
Tell people why you did this.
Dude, that's the part I was the most confused about. I was like, why does someone need to come on CNBC to like talk about a stock they like? GameStop. Oh my God. Look at this green candle. It's up 16% after hours. Who's buying after hours? Is there a whale coming? Oh, it's up 18%. It just jumped 2% within seconds. I feel like there's got to be a whale, dude. There's no way this jumped 17% out of nowhere. Holy crap. It was basically flat at $48 for like 2 hours. Look at that rise. AMC also up 10% as well. AMC now $7.54. I feel like there's a whale that just came in, dude. I mean, maybe retail's piling in after hours, but retail's been in the whole day. I feel like this is someone different. J Powell's buying. Is it Portnoy? Let's go to his Twitter. Is Portnoy buying? Is Andrew Tate putting in more money? Portnoy, he hasn't tweeted in 4 hours. Okay, so maybe it's not him. Still up 17%, $57 after hours. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Savage. Amid cash secured puts on Palantir, $30 puts, 120, 2026, 2 contracts, 6,000 collateral. Maybe cover this with TJ. Yeah, if you're selling a leap put, that's fine. You're going to get a ton of premium. But 2 things you have to be sure of. Number 1, do you think Palantir is above 30 by January 2026? I think, in my opinion, yes. So you have to decide for yourself. Number 2, you've got that collateral stuck for that time, right? So as long as you're okay with that collateral being stuck, then that's fine. But you will get some good premiums on long dated puts. So selling long dated puts is not a bad strategy to generate premium. $56 on GameStop, up 16.4%. Philip says, no way Amit doesn't FOMO in some of that new cash. Honestly, dude, I'm being so dead honest. I have zero FOMO, like zero FOMO. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just maturing or something, but like I legitimately have zero FOMO. I don't care about like getting into this run. And maybe it's because I believe Hood's going to be the eventual winner and I'm patient enough to let that story play out. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the bet I've taken. So there's really not a ton of FOMO here. And also I don't think I can time this thing, dude. Like, I don't know. It's really hard to, unless you got in super early at like $10 to $20. I think getting in right now is very risky to the upside or the downside. AMC as well, 10%. Here's the other thing. When is GameStop going to do an offering? When are they going to take advantage of this? I mean, the stock's up 600%. At some point, you would think management's like, hey, we could raise a shit ton of money right now. I don't know. The AMC did it. It took Adam Aaron like 2 hours to decide to do it. Ryan Cohen has to decide now if he's going to do it. And I guess we'll see. Mila says, I got in today. Look, I don't blame anyone getting in on this as long as you're okay with losing it. GameStop now down, it's up 10%, but there's a red candle right there. If you're okay with losing it, I feel like it's a fun gamble. And, you know, you can have some fun. But if it's real money you're betting on this, I would just be a little cautious because this is you know, there was a guy on Wall Street Bets who lost, he sold naked calls on this thing and he's down 300K. So he sold calls at a $50 strike because the assumption was that GameStop would be below 50. Now that it's above 50 and in the morning it was at almost 70, he doesn't have the shares to collateralize the calls that he sold, which is why it's called a covered call. The whole point of it being covered is because you have the shares to cover it. And usually it's 100 shares a contract. If you don't have the shares, it's naked. And if you're naked, you could get exposed. And right now he's down $300,000. So he owes 300,000, not down 300,000. Correct. Yes, he owes 300 grand to someone who may exercise those calls. So what basically means he's down 300 grand. He has to come up with 300 grand somehow, you know, to pay that. I wonder how Vlad is feeling about all this. That's a great comment. I was thinking about this morning, dude. I was thinking, dude, me and him literally talked about this whole thing happening a couple months ago. He said, we'll be more prepared for it. Now it's happening. Let's check Robinhood on the App Store right now. And now he's in the thick of it. He's in the eye of the storm. And it's like he probably thought 3 years ago, oh, this will never happen again. It's happening again. Number 7 on finance. Let me look at the top 3 apps. And you got to be thinking he's with his team right now, just like making sure they navigate this shit. Robinhood's number 81 on the App Store. So it moved up from 86. So there you go. It's right under Paramount Plus, United Airlines, and right above Google Authenticator and Waze. Incredible, dude. It's so hard to get in the top 200. So it seems like I guess as long as they don't mess up and the infrastructure stays good, they're going to take advantage of this and they're going to grow a lot. Question is just making sure things go well. AMC's up 10%. GameStop's up another 10.54%. What else do we have? It's a great stress test for Hood and their partners, 1000%. Great stress test for Hood as well. Great stress test for Hood. And it's important. I mean, the capital markets are crazy now, right? Things like this happen and you have to be ready for this stuff if it goes down. All right, Rumble's earnings. Forgot to look at that. So here's Rumble's earnings. Their stock currently, let me check Rumble and Nubank. Nubank after hours is down 2%. Rumble after hours is down 4%. So Rumble revenue of 17 million compared to 17.6 million. Wow, there's no growth. There's no growth for Rumble. 17.6 last year, 17.7 this year. No growth. Average global MAUs was 50 million compared to 67 million last quarter. They lost 17 million MAUs. This is the I love how companies try to manufacture how to say good things. This is the 9th consecutive quarter above 40 million average global MAUs on the platform, not mentioning a year ago, they were above 50 million, which means they're actually down year over year. The decrease from the fourth quarter is attributable to the fourth quarter's increased interest in geopolitical events. Wait, what? The decrease of MAUs is because of the fourth quarter's increased interest in geopolitical events, high-profile seasonal sporting events, and increased interest in Rumble content creators. If that's the case, why are you decreasing? That makes no sense. How do you go down from 67 million to 50 million if there's more interest in like what's happening in the world? Average estimated minutes per month is 8.6 billion compared to 10.5 billion. That's down quarter over quarter. Hours of video uploaded a day was 12,000 videos hours compared to 11,000. So that's good. And they're suing YouTube. They announced that they're suing Google again for something. This is interesting, dude. This is very interesting. Well, yeah, Rumble, again, I've never really believed in them too much. I do like that there's alternative platforms, but I think Google at the end of the day is going to win the online video game. Rumble right now down 3%. Let's go back to GameStop. What do we have on GameStop? 54, up 11% right now. AMC as well, up 10%. NASDAQ has a record high closing today. Yeah, let's go to the NASDAQ right now. That means it's above 16,000, right? Wow, 16,500. That's where we were, guys. Hold on, let's look at the chart. That's where we were 3 years ago, right? Look at this. So 3 years ago, 2021, we were at 16,212. We topped out right before we fell all the way to 10,000. Now we're right back. Look at that V shape, right back to 16,538. Insane, dude. Insane. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right, let me text Arnie. We're going to watch the podcast now. Let me just message him. Arnie's actually in Vegas right now. Arnie's like doing a little tour of the United States. So he's going to join us and we're going to show you guys this podcast we did with Shyam Sankar. That'll be fun to react to, but man, what an insane and crazy day we're looking at right now. Absolutely insane. All right, here's another update on Google. This is another thing I was looking for. So here's their AI agent called Astra. This is another thing they announced this morning as well. We'll take a look at this and then keep going. Smoke Tuna says, I can't access Rumble in France because of the French government's demand to remove creators from our platform. Well, France is a bit more communist and they don't like Rumble's content, so they can like dictate it. Same thing Canada's doing with Bloomberg News and Instagram. So Rumble really does have not the biggest market globally, but if they're the home of free speech, maybe that's what investors believe in as their moat. All right, here's another update on Google today at their I/O event.
Has been tracking the headlines, and we're learning ever more about Gemini today, Deirdre.
Yeah, Kelly, there's a lot of technological advancements that matter deeply to developers. We can hear the cheers and applause from the amphitheater right beside me. For our audience, though, probably the biggest announcements so far have been the expansion of SGE, that's Search Generative Experience, and Project Astra. Let me get to both because they have implications for Google's business model. Sundar Pichai said that the company is launching what they're now calling AI overviews in search across the US. It'll be available to all users by the end of this week, and they're going to roll that out to different countries, more countries throughout the rest of the year. And that means that the way we search, what we know of search, 10 blue links, that is going to be changing. There's been all these questions over whether Google would disrupt its current business model. I wouldn't say that this is an entire disruption, but this is sprinkling more generative AI into traditional search queries. And that is going to look different for users, for advertisers, for merchants. So that has major implications. The other thing that was just announced was Project Astra. This is a universal AI agent. And as I watched that demo, I couldn't help but think that this is certainly what OpenAI was trying to front run with its demo yesterday. This is less of a chatbot, more of an AI assistant or an AI agent. I want to show you some of the demo that they just showed a few minutes ago in the amphitheater.
What neighborhood do you think I'm in?
This appears to be the King's Cross area of London. It is known for its railway station and transportation connections.
Do you remember where you saw my glasses?
Yes, I do. Your glasses were on the desk near a red apple.
That last part kind of blew me away, blew the audience away as well, because what you didn't see was earlier on in that video, it had seen glasses. Even you looking through your camera might not have noticed that, but AI agents have memory and they have reason. And this is really a new era of generative AI that's going to have enormous implications. There's another part of that demo where the user is not looking through her phone, but she puts on a pair of AI glasses. This is what you're seeing right now. And it seems to work a lot better. So it does also raise this question, what is going to be the device of the AI era? Even when we watched OpenAI's demo yesterday, kind of when you're awkwardly holding the phone to show your work, it's got to be a better way. It is certainly a throwback to Google Glasses. I don't know if you guys remember that, but
AI is about to get crazy. But my bets and my capital is on a company that is going to use AI in a very interesting way. And so is this guy joining me all the way from Vegas. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you.
How are you liking Las Vegas, Nevada?
Look, I've been in the US for a week now, and essentially it was always raining. And here has arrived like crazy sun. I even had to take the Uber even if I wanted to work, because I realized, okay, I'll get burned if I work for an hour here.
It's exciting, right? It's like close to California. You're not in California yet, but it's still super fun. And the weather must be way better, right, than DC?
It looks like literally another continent. But what is really crazy is everything around me. Like this city really seems like a dream of adults made true.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's a dream of adults made true. Exactly. All right. So Arnie, you and I did a thing at this Palantir event. You want to tell everybody what we did, and then I'll get the show started.
First, let me ask you, what's that hat? Why I don't have a hat? Second thing, it was tough, but we got one of the most weighted, and we were craving so much to have this conversation with one of the leaders of the company that we follow closely. A person that initially, I would say, was quite hard to understand what he meant, but we saw that his leadership capabilities are only at the beginning. It was a nice conversation. We touched many different things, but let me ask you, have you already disclosed who we talked to?
Everyone knows. Everyone should know by now.
Come on.
Everyone should know. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to talk to Shyam Sankar. Videos live on YouTube and on Twitter. We're going to be reacting to it here. Share it. Send it to anyone you like. This was a big, big deal for Arnie and myself, two retail guys talking about the company over the past couple of years. Shyam was nice enough to sit down with us. Not the most fanciest production value because we kind of had to do this on the spot, but we did have pretty good audio and we got to ask him a ton of questions. So hope you guys enjoy. We'll talk after these 20 minutes. Here is Shyam Sankar, CTO of Palantir.
Boom.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Palantir Weekly. This is one of the most special episodes we've ever had on this podcast. This podcast is dedicated to one company over the past 2 years. And on episode number 118, we have the honor and privilege of having the CTO of Palantir, Shyam Sankar, join us. Shyam, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, I'm a little starstruck. I'm used to seeing you guys, on a screen here. So it's great to be in real life.
Okay, so we're at this big conference all about AI. I have a couple questions we just want to get your thoughts on in terms of what's been happening with Palantir and the trajectory of the company. Boot camps have been pretty much exploding. You guys just had Q1 earnings and you reported some amazing numbers in regards to boot camp growth. A couple years ago, Arnie and I were on this podcast and we were struggling to figure out how a company that has such an amazing product is struggling to sell that product. And obviously selling SaaS products are hard. But you guys figured it out and figured it out in a pretty profound way. What can you say about AIP growth in terms of the bootcamp strategy? And how do you think that's going to define the next decade for Palantir's growth?
At the risk of starting from the beginning, a little philosophically, I think what's so powerful about the ChatGPT moment is that it recalibrated the expectations in the market. I think in many ways, ChatGPT is not directly relevant to the enterprise, but suddenly people are feeling like, wait a second, my software is supposed to work. This is possible. Why am I not getting more? And I think that recalibration really started in COVID, where people were like, I've spent $10 billion on IT. I had a small disruption to my supply chain. Why is it the only thing I'm proud of having invested in is Zoom? So what am I getting for my IT money? And so the boot camps, the reason they're really working is in 8 hours, you're able to understand what could be done. I can't tell you how many anecdotes are roughly of the shape, I got more done in these 8 hours than I did in the past X months. And you can't unsee that. As a user, you may not decide to leave that and buy the very next second, but now that is the standard by which you are going to judge every piece of software that is put in front of you.
American prosperity is national security. That was the name of your keynote. Could you better elaborate what do you mean with that, why it is important, and how can you implement this concept into the product, the strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's the way of thinking about the company. 50% of the company is focused on government, directly protecting national security in the context of Western nations and allies. The other 50% is focused on commercial. We can look at Korea and Vietnam. In 1950, they roughly had the same GDP per capita. South Korea, capitalist, Vietnam, not. Now the GDP per capita is 5x in South Korea than it is in Vietnam. A big part of what we care about is raising the human condition. So freedom and prosperity are the unifying themes of what we work on. And it's important to remember that national security is a means to an end. And that end is to promote freedom and prosperity. We don't do defense for defense's sake. And the opportunity with AI here is how do we get past the stagnant productivity growth that we have experienced in the West? How do we solve some of the biggest problems we have? I like telling people in healthcare, look, the fact that healthcare costs are rising faster than inflation and GDP, that is an issue for national security. We're not going to be able to afford this level of care. How are we innovating on that? And I think technologies like AIP have a huge role to play there.
Following up on that real quick before getting to the next question, you mentioned in your keynote, which was an exceptional keynote that we had the privilege of just seeing about an hour ago, $100 billion has been allocated to defense tech from the VCs. Now, when you guys were trying to get funded, no VCs would look at you, and then you somehow got the government to fund you. Can you speak a little bit to where you think American dynamism is going in terms of private capital actually coming back to defense tech?
Yeah, and I think coming back is the right way to think about it. One thing people don't realize is in the interwar years between World War I and World War II, it was really private aerospace that was subsidizing the existence of aerospace. Government was essentially kind of trying to drive them out of business, right? And founders kept pouring capital into this. And the counterfactual, if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't be able to meet their moment with World War II in order to produce that many airplanes. So what I see is us returning to essentially what the economy used to look like. Bob Noyce, the co-founder of Intel and co-inventor of the transistor, in the 60s, 96% of his revenue was DoD. That's the only people who were buying integrated circuits. But he never let more than 4% of his R&D budget be directly funded by the government because he, as the inventor, wanted to control the R&D roadmap. And think about how much prosperity the fact that America invented the integrated circuit and that revolution has brought all of us, the quality of living standard that we've all enjoyed as a consequence of that. So that's where I think these things really come together here.
In terms of Rebellion, so we just saw a partner that you guys worked with on stage in terms of the collaboration from their defense products and your defense products with Gotham. A couple of months ago, or I think it was summer 2023, FedStart became a real big thing for the company. And this idea was that you guys went through the hell of 20 years of figuring out how to sell to the government, how to make the connections, how to navigate the politics and bureaucracy. And now you've got all these smaller startups that are getting the hundreds of billions of dollars from the Andreessen Horowitz of the world that are trying to find the next Palantir, the next Anduril, but they're not accredited and they don't have the sort of safety ramifications to get into the government. How big do you think that can become over the long term in terms of getting companies the access they need to the DoD, and what do you think it means for the business at large?
And I recognize I have more to say about FedStart from your first question. So I think the way to think about it is FedStart is the entry-level product, if you will. Look, I'm a new entrant. I have customer interest. How do I go get revenue from that interest? Well, it's going to turn out that you need to solve these accreditation problems that I can make go away very quickly. Right? Okay. Now, there's a broader play here, which is if you really think about what does the government want? For each one of these programs in government, which there are hundreds, maybe potentially thousands, they want what they call a multi-vendor big tent ecosystem. They want to be able to have lots of people come in and compete and provide innovation and have an incentive, as opposed to the old legacy model of a single big monolithic prime. Everyone is aligned on that vision. How are you going to do that technically? The way that they do that without something like mission manager, as we call it, is with labor. You hire a system integrator, you pay them by the hour, they try to manage through process this whole sort of multi-vendor Big Ten ecosystem. But the reason we got there first is because it may look like I'm shipping 4 platforms, but my lived reality as CTO is that I have 150 software development teams building 5,000 microservices, deploying some collection of those services to 1,000 production environments, 100 of which are air-gapped. That is a multi-vendor Big Ten ecosystem, and I solved that problem with software. And in the same way that Amazon built really exquisite first-party software to sell books, and then now that powers half the internet, I think this software infrastructure with Rubix and Apollo, that with the OSDK that we call Mission Manager, can power the success of these defense tech companies. It will get them to revenue quicker. It will power the programs that the governments really want to make them competitive and scalable and to meet this moment. And if you go along with the other things I've been saying, that software is the unique American advantage. We can field a lot of software to our warfighters between now and any potential conflict. You can't field that much exquisite hardware between now and then. How many B-21s are going to be available, right? But this is our unique strength, and we can leverage Rebellion. We can leverage the breadth of modern American software companies to have a real impact.
We are here at AI Expo, and there are a lot of companies and a huge Palantir booth, where we had the opportunity to have experience directly with AAP in different settings and different use cases. Among the 100,000 things you can do with AAP, what is the one that excites you the most?
That's like picking amongst your children. I think it's a little bit hard, but I'm very excited about the ability for the integration, if you will, between builders writing AIP logic functions that show up in something like Gaia that a normal everyday users can be able to use to execute their work. So I mentioned this on the earnings call where a builder in DoD created an AIP logic function that took the targeting cycle down from 6 hours to 10 seconds. I mean, that's advantage right there, and so if you can repeat that even 50 times, I think that's what transformation looks like.
Shyam, we have about 10 minutes left. Can you tell us a little bit? I think a lot of people that listen to the podcast would enjoy listening from your own perspective. What was it like starting this thing in the beginning, being the first employee for a deployed engineer, and now you're the CTO of a very large and very important company? Like, do you kind of feel like a rock star, even a little bit? Like, even just a little bit?
No, I mean, no. It feels, it's like been a continuum. 18 years in some sense both feels like the blink of an eye. And the only thing I can remember, I don't remember what life before Palantir really was, and I mean, it's so rewarding day to day to work with the users we have, to work backwards from the problems that they face across government and commercial work. And so I think the real meta reflection on the journey of Palantir is like, it's about learning. Karp's favorite business movie is the 36 Chambers of Shaolin. And it took me a long time to really understand why. And it's just like, you're just trying to earn your way into the next chamber of understanding how does the world really work? How can we have a greater impact as a consequence of that working? And I feel like I'm still on that journey.
The culture of winning. You wrote a great article a couple of weeks ago, and I really wonder, is there a unique way to win?
I think there's a lot of ways to win, but the unique way to lose is to pretend that the world works a way that it doesn't. To say like, no, like the world has to work this way because I don't want to live in a world that doesn't work this way. Instead of saying, look, this is how the world works. I've now learned that. My strategy needs to adapt to that reality. And that's why I think elevating, I mean, my own personal experience here is like, I screwed up the primacy of winning. That's why I hold on to it so dearly. So many times in this journey, it's like, but like, I don't want it to work that way. I want it's like, and it's like, then you kind of like, that's never going to change. That's a useless way of framing the problem. So like, okay, get back on the horse, figure out how does the world really work? How do I adjust my software and the strategy and how we're going to deploy and what we're learning and how we're promoting people and who we're recruiting so that we keep winning. And I think the reason I emphasize that a lot internally is like, that is one of the chambers for every person to go through. That the education system we have, we teach people that the world works a certain way. How quickly are you going to learn it doesn't work that way?
The rise of LLMs, we talked a little bit about AIP boot camps, have basically revolutionized how the world thinks about machine learning, AI, business intelligence. This one talk you did a while ago, your theme was don't think of LLMs as chat, think of them as compute. Sort of a new form of infrastructure for the entire modern enterprise. The demos Arnie and I saw today were basically, it finally clicked to me why LLMs and AI goes beyond chat. What is your version of LLMs in the enterprise outside of just a chatbot?
I think it's a new way of writing logic, writing functions. It doesn't replace traditional software. It really allows you to address a set of things traditional software couldn't do. And so when you have, this is a simplistic way of thinking about it, but to a first approximation, it's good. LLMs give you infinite on-demand intern capacity. Now, if you stare at the workflow that you're currently trying to solve, you can decomp that workflow into expert reasoning, intern reasoning, traditional software, and AI. Now, how you assemble this into an elegant workflow is the magic of AIP. And you never had that intern level reasoning, and the harder you look at some of these problems, the more you realize how much you can do. Like let's use patient discharge at a hospital. If you've ever had a medical procedure, the worst part is waiting to be discharged. It is a catastrophe. And if you really think about it, the way certainly medicine works is you have this care guideline. People have in English or in some language, human language, they've written down how this should work. Now, how do I take the clinical record, the care guidelines, and understand, is this patient eligible for discharge? Can they go to a discharge lounge, or do I need to occupy this bed? By the way, not only does it suck as the patient to occupy that bed, that means someone else who actually needs care cannot occupy that bed. Right. So there's all these and if you're a nurse, which my mom was, at the end of a 14-hour shift, this is hard to deal with, right? Like, it would be nice to have an army of infinite on-demand interns helping you go through this, making your job more efficient. And I think as you start looking at the landscape, if you're a supply chain manager, If you're in the legal profession, if you're dealing with procurement, there's so many places that you can get leverage on top of this.
In line with what you just said, it seems that models are already a commodity. So I wonder what people grasp of this idea. Like, do people agree with this idea of the commoditization of the models, or you see some frictions? What is your understanding of what you understand as a CTO, as a company, and what the world still doesn't understand?
Well, to me, this comes back to the primacy of winning. So I think if you look at these models, they are very clearly today powerful interns. They're not going to be a pharmaceutical subject matter expert, a mechanical subject matter expert. Maybe they can be in the future. And when that's in the parametric of knowledge of the models, we'll find ways of leveraging them. But what we very clearly see today is there's a set of things that they can do, and we know how to leverage them for effect. Now, I think some of this comes down to how you define your job. So if you're a data scientist, you really, really need to believe that fine-tuning or custom training models is possible, because otherwise, what is your job? And so this is where you kind of see a lot of people pushing in that direction, where it's not actually clear there's any economic return from doing that. There may be, but why don't you let the use cases take you there, as opposed to the preconceived notion of your job role is? And so I think it's going to open up, one, like with any new technology, there's a part of this that's a little dislocating. You're going to have to redefine your job around what makes sense in this context. But one of the patterns that we've seen that I think is a secret, if you will, is that one of the most powerful things you can do with these LLMs is incorporate expert feedback, because it's the thing they don't know. Now, you're not going to get the expert feedback through, you can definitely get expert feedback through fine tuning. But one of the patterns that we're helping people with Build with AIP is injecting the expert feedback back into the prompt in the AIP logic function, structuring that feedback in the ontology so that the function can go query the ontology for past mistakes it's made, past injections of corrections in its mechanical machine reasoning by experts to make better and better decisions.
The AIP developer, anyone can sign up for an account free thing that you guys just launched that's kind of going viral right now on social media. What is that, and why do you think people are excited about it right now?
One of the greatest things for me about AIP is it is for builders. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about, there's this like learning curve. Like the primitives we use, they're not the same as hyperscaler primitives. And you have to kind of put in the time to understand, okay, now that I understand how to solve problems with Foundry or AIP, I'm unleashed. I want to make that as easy as possible. And with our marketplace product, we've been able to package up quick starts, tutorials, reference implementations. And I think we're just at the beginning of that. We're going to start creating a lot more of these things that are responsive to how the patterns we see that are valuable, the patterns that get people over that learning hump as quickly as possible, and allow them to play with it. I think there's some natural charisma. Everyone wants to build a compelling use case with GPT vision. Yeah. Great, let me help you do that quickly and easily and experience that through AIP. So I think it's going to be and I really want to start with our existing customers, our existing builders. How do I get more builders at existing customers? How do I help our existing builders do even more? And I think that kind of opens the door to a broader builder ecosystem that I think you guys have been talking about for a while.
A column of artists. That's how you defined Palantir. And that's an intriguing definition that makes me wonder why it is important to have a column of artists into tech, which is code. So we should be rigid. Why art?
That's a very important question. I mean, I would say, to give credit where it's due, the artist colony is Karp's philosophy that we've all, built the company around. And it comes from his deep belief that peak talent, is highly asymmetrical. There are going to be things you're exceptionally good at and things you are exceptionally not good at. Yep. And your ability to succeed in life is going to come down to your, know thyself, the Oracle of Delphi. Do you actually understand what your superpowers are? Do you understand what you are so bad at that you shouldn't even be involved with? And that takes a lot of, you have to manage your own ego. There's a learning journey in there. So how do we make that okay? How do we create an environment that maximizes the individual? I don't think you get Monet to be amazing by telling him to paint more like Picasso, right? Like every one of these artists is unique. And you think about the X-Men, they have superpowers. They all had some sort of weird fatal flaw, usually in their personality, something like that. But, in aggregate, they were very, very powerful. And so how do we honor the fact that, no one at Palantir is a solo act. We are a rock band. We play in unison in concert. We all have different instruments. We all have different strengths. And we value that. The other part that I think is really important is it allows you to attract the very best people because they don't want to be confined by some weird preconceived conception of what the role is. They want the role to modulate to what they're great at. And it creates that freedom and prosperity, even within your role definition.
Okay, Shyam, last question for you. First of all, thank you for taking the time for this. This was absolutely amazing to get the privilege to talk to you. What do you think is one misconception people have about either Palantir, leadership, Alex Karp, who's a very eclectic, in his words, eccentric individual that is very polarizing to an extent? Is there anything out there that you want people to know about Palantir, Karp, the entire team, that is something that they don't really understand that you guys deeply get? And if they were to understand, maybe they would better get the vision of Palantir.
It's so hard. After 18 years, I feel like I'm so steeped in it. It's hard to take a step out of it and say, what don't people get? But I think the thing that they don't understand, because maybe they don't believe it, is that the fundamental challenges that we are solving remain unaddressed in the world.
What do you mean by that? Like, tangibly,
when we started with the business, the secret of it was that actually everyone thinks data integration is both a boring and solved problem.
Right.
And, you could argue maybe it's potentially boring, but it's definitely not solved. And if we just, as a society, keep pretending that it's solved, you suddenly find that you have a legitimacy crisis. None of your institutions work. Planes fall off doors, or doors fall off planes. Either, however you want to think about the physics of that. But it's a real problem. And then, like,
shout out to Boeing, dude. That was the funniest part of this whole thing.
When you pretend problems are solved and they're not, it actually tears at the fabric of society. People start wondering, why does nothing work? It engenders nihilism, right? That's not the world I want my children to inherit. I want the definite optimism of the young kid who watched the space shuttle launch growing up in the Space Coast. Like, we can do great things. That requires engineering. And we as a company are committed to that. It's why, everyone wants to solve forward. Like, how do we come up with the perfect product market fit and find the thing that people want to buy, instead of saying, let's look at the world and see what's broken, right? And work backwards to solve those problems.
Which are harder to figure out.
I think it's way harder, but it's also way more rewarding.
I have a critical question for you, Shyam. Have you ever gone cross-country skiing with Karp?
I have. I won't lie. I can't keep up with him. Not even close. It's usually, he's like, why don't you go on that kiddie track over there? But yes, it's. I would say it's rubbed off on me.
Thank you, Shyam Sankar. This is awesome. Appreciate it. It means the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, there you go. That was a fun one. What was your reaction watching that back now?
It is so nice, but everything, like, I would say thank you, Shyam, again for this opportunity. Thank you, Eliano, for having helped us having this opportunity, and thank you, Amit, for having a big brain who prevented random things to prevent us from making the podcast. In other words, you were smart enough to have an additional microphone to.
Yeah, let me give the backstory on that. But real quick, thank you to Shyam as well. We just posted this Twitter at Shyam. Shyam just followed me on Twitter, so we just saw the tweet and people are checking it out on Twitter. So thank you to Shyam for giving us your time. Thank you to Arnie as well, who helped me do that entire interview. So it was awesome to get to do it with an actual friend and not just by myself. Because again, this whole thing is about relationships at the end of the day, right? And the friendship that you build over time. It's not just about getting the interview. It's about doing it with someone that you actually care about and going on the journey for a lifetime. So the way this interview happened is we were scheduled to do the interview at 4:00. And it was at the conference. They told us we would have maybe 15, 20 minutes with him. He's very busy. He was doing like 17,000 things. So he was nice enough to sit down with us. It wasn't supposed to be a 50-minute kind of in-depth interview because he just didn't have the time to do that. And this wasn't the setting for it. So we book a podcast studio. The event is like, hey, we have a podcast studio. And so we're like, all right, so we book studio time. We get to the studio, and they have these random microphones that are not hooked up to anything. They have this soundboard that's not hooked up to the microphones. And so I get there and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is not a studio. So I thought of this the morning. It was like 6 a.m. And in my head, when we were packing the bag, I was like, you know what? I'm turning into a more skeptical human being. I'm going to be really fucking skeptical that this podcast studio is a real podcast studio. So I just grabbed a mic, put it into my bag. And thankfully, when we got there, we were able to actually have a really good microphone because the video is whatever. The video could be blurry, doesn't matter, but the audio can't suck. And we had some pretty good audio. Arnie, what were your insights what was the thing you got from the interview that as you're watching it again was like, that was like such a good point by Shyam and helps you understand Palantir even more?
I would say there are two angles that I really liked. One is more so philosophical about the culture of winning. That answer really struck me. Like, is there a single way to win? And no, there are many ways to win, but there is only one way you can lose. Like, you need to learn how you die in order to avoid it. That's absolutely in line with what Charlie Munger said. But more specifically to the company, I think the biggest clue that we have that Palantir understands and the world is still not understanding. So it's like our secret is when he speaks about the experts. Now, we know ChatGPT can help you make stuff faster. You are more efficient because you have, as Shyam says, this horde of internships that can help you process more stuff. But the problem is an internship, like an intern with the LLM, is not something that really learns you. And in order to enable that learning, you need to have an ontology. And once you know that an expert can use these models, then the ontology learns. I think this concept of learning and compounding the knowledge, absorbing the knowledge of not the interns. So it's not about, help ChatGPT help me write a title for YouTube or a simple script. But you have your top-notch talent that interacting with the LLM then learns and capture the past mistakes, captures new decisions. You have definitely a company that doesn't only grow as a company, so as a business entity, but it learns as an individual. So the more people you have interacting with this LLM, the more the standing of these people, so the better they are, the more asymmetrical talents these people are interacting with the LLM, the more the ontology of a company becomes more powerful and further better decisions can be enabled. I think this thing is something that Palantir figured out, but nobody has yet. And in a simple way, it means that it's still very early. People now are still focused on, I just want to have an LLM. I want to have AI in my company so that I can tell the board, I'm doing AI. I have an AI strategy. But the consequences of companies embracing Palantir, learning how to deploy all these expert feedback into their models, into their ontology, is what in a couple of years from now, we really shape the difference between who's winning and who's losing. And hopefully we will see Airbus planes still in the air and not falling like the other company.
That part was hilarious. So at the end when he says, so what Arnie's saying is, Palantir wants the world. I think that was the best answer to the question he gave. Palantir wants to operate in the world that currently is, not in the world that is perceived to be. So like, he didn't say Boeing, but we can read between the lines. Boeing is acting as if their planes are okay and they don't have to make any adjustments. Whereas Airbus 8 years ago, 2017, they were like, no. The world's messed up. Airplane manufacturing is messed up. Our vendors, our suppliers, everything needs to be integrated. Here's this Alex Karp dude telling us he can fix all this stuff. Maybe we should take the meeting. And so they operated in a world in which they saw the problem versus operating in a world in which the perception of the problem didn't exist. Therefore, the solution didn't have to exist. Whereas Shyam says, no, you can build the solution. You can get a rocket to Mars. You can solve these issues if you believe in the problem and the ability to solve those problems, even if believing in those problems and the solution to those problems is harder than believing in the potential status quo that you want to exist, even if it's not the real status quo. I think the other thing Shyam mentioned here that was my biggest takeaway was when I said, what is something that we don't understand about management or about leadership? And he says, well, the reason we are the way we are is because we double down on our strengths. And from a life perspective, I thought that was so valuable because I've had to deal with that realization a long time ago. Everyone here knows I wanted to be the next Michael Jackson. I wanted to be a superstar. I wanted to be on stage. By 10th grade, I realized I can't fucking sing or dance. So I was like, okay, so that's not working. I've got to move on from that dream. And I wanted to be the next basketball player. Started freshman, JV, point guard. I was okay. I wasn't getting taller than 5'7". That dream is gone. And until you realize, hey, maybe I'm okay at talking. Maybe I can double down on like my communication skills. Then things changed for me. And so when he's saying the employees that come to Palantir, they're really good at one or two things, but they suck at everything else. Palantir as a culture gives them the freedom to be good at the one or two things they're good at. And that creates a company where people are exceptional versus just average. And that lets the company end up being a lot stronger.
And that's the only way you can really innovate, because you have 4,000 people. But if each of these 4,000 people are highly asymmetrical, it means that the pool of experts, real experts into each domain is actually way more valuable than, let's say, 10,000 people, but which are all well-rounded. That's the reason, like, that allow me this comparison. Like, you have the banks which have like infinite amount of people, and then you have big techs who are relatively very few, but they make much more money. Why? Because in banking, you make the career where if you are well-rounded person, not if you are highly asymmetrical. And let me underscore this. We have evidence of how Palantir innovates from the bootcamps, from the products, and also with a combo, suit and hoodies.
Yeah, the suit and hoodie combo was legend. I got to do that. I think I got to do that. I got to steal that from him. That was awesome.
But I mean, so it's funny, but first, it was actually cool. Second, that made me think of what Karp mentioned a couple of years ago. You know, one of the first interviews since Palantir went listed, Karp mentioned something that makes you really think of the corporate culture. When you try to mix things that they don't talk each other, initially is a mess. You know, it is a very hard problem. But if you find that angle where you can allow sales and engineering talk together, and Bootcamp is an example of that. A company where you have civil rights guaranteed by the strength, something that works, like Gotham, that allows you to target while also preserving civil rights, understanding exactly what are the drivers that allow you to target and how that process of the kill chain is then structured, then you have a superior product. So when you have this combination of things that don't talk naturally each other, but you're able to find an elegant way to merge them, that is where you have a superior output.
Yeah. And I think Shyam, we can tell, we've all watched a lot of his interviews, but dude, he's so articulate. He's so strong. And a couple of years ago, he was good, but he got into this level where now he's exceptional at communicating. That keynote that he gave about American dynamism and like the first breakfast, I saw him give it almost 5 times the whole week. He did it once at the reception, did it once at the event. People were talking about it. He did it with them. He did it with us on the podcast. He's kind of memorized his story and he really believes in it. He's just constantly talking about it, which means he has a thesis, a belief about the world. Karp is talking about like the woke pagan religions, and Shyam is talking about, you know, what it means to have defense technology and to be supplied with the billions of dollars that the United States should be spending on software defense technology. They both have their own different prerogatives in terms of messages they want to propagandize, but they know how to say it really well. They know how to fucking communicate, and it's so damn hard, given I've been analyzing public companies for a couple of years now. You know, you want this guy to say one thing on the call. You think they had a really good metric here. They should be talking about that. They should be talking about the philosophy of that, and they just don't know how to say it. And if you don't know how to say it, shareholders don't know how to understand it, which means no one buys your stock. So you really need communicators that know what the hell they're doing and that actually care about the business. Shyam was the first forward deployed engineer. Multiple employees the entire day told us that he's the hardest working guy at Palantir. I mean, I think we asked like 7 or 8 of them, like, hey, you know, what do you think about Shyam? He's like, he's the hardest working guy at Palantir. And so the fact that he took 20 minutes to spend some time with us really, really means a lot.
Well, I also received the feedback that Shyam is very, very hard working. And I agree with the fact that Shyam always had a very positive energy, a very strong energy. But initially, I was personally struggling to really understand what he meant, especially when he were talking about more technical stuff. Like now, I see him like not only very convinced, but also very, very clear. So congratulations to Shyam. And we know, actually, since we are here making live stream, how hard it is not only to learn stuff, but also to communicate them effectively. I would like to underscore something that maybe went a little bit underscored under noticed, but I think is worth mentioning. When he was talking about the government willing to deploy more AI, the conversation was about the multi-vendor system. And if you remember, that was actually a critique that some analysts, I think it was actually specifically Rishi saying, with the government willing to have multi-vendors, that means that they want to go away from Palantir. And if we actually listen carefully to what Shyam says, it is actually the opposite, because Palantir seems the way with which the government allows a multi-vendor system with a mission manager, so essentially the kit Palantir is providing to the government and to startups to actually help this communication between AI startups that want to support the national security and the government who just needs to solve the problems. Palantir can be that bridge with these solutions like Fast Start. Then during the IPO, the AI Expo, Shyam announced Jatsi 2 SDK, so a further product that helps companies interact between the government needs and the AI startup world, which is only now receiving a big amount of money from venture capitals. Venture capital was very skeptical of giving money to AI startups because the idea was, okay, I give you the money to solve a problem. The big problem is it takes so long that before you actually are able to sell anything to the government, that you're just dead. You go into what is called the valley of death. So you raise capital, you try to solve a problem, and then nothing happens for many years. Government takes too long, and voila. But now with the rising war, the rising geopolitical tensions, the VC world is now opening the eyes, and they're willing to invest a lot of capital into these AI startups. And the way Palantir enters in this picture is by leveraging the expertise they've been building for 20 years to allow these companies actually to operate with the government effectively and also efficiently.
Agreed. And I think Shyam's realizing we need to tap into that opportunity, that market, and see how big the government opportunity can really get for the entire company. All right, that's it for us, folks. This was awesome. The video is live on my channel. You can share it, check it out. If you want to watch it again, feel free to watch it. It's also on Twitter as well. I'll post the Twitter right here. If anyone has a Twitter, you can retweet it. It was a really fun interview. Super, super awesome. Shout out to Chad and Ileano. If they're watching this, they were the two guys at Palantir that really set this up and got us this opportunity. So it means the world to us. Arnie's Twitter is in the description, and so is my Twitter. You guys can check it out. It's there. And Arnie, any last words on this event?
Thank you again to everyone, to Shyam, Chad, but I would say to everyone, you included, and thank you to everyone watching here, because this interview was possible only thanks to your support.
Yeah, if there's no community, there's no interview. You know, we're not just talking to Shyam for the hell of it. Like we're talking because there's people that care, and you guys are the ones that care, which is why we keep making the content. We care as well, and it's super cool to go on this journey with everybody here and spend time trying to build what I think is going to rival probably Tesla as one of the most fantastic communities on the internet, and we are just getting started. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Arnie's Twitter is in the chat in the description right here. We'll see you guys on the market open tomorrow, 8:45 a.m. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you. Ciao.